Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, as well as our co-hosts, the Government of Quebec, Murdoch Capital Partners, and TAA Advisory, we're very pleased you've joined us for our next live presentation from Vision Lithium Inc. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you're interested in scheduling a meeting with Vision Lithium, please click on the Meetings tab found on the left navigation bar. Be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Yves Rougerie, President and CEO of Vision Lithium, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol ABEPF and on the TSXV under the symbol VLI. Welcome, Yves.
Thank you, Bob. Good day, everyone. Thanks for spending some time with us today so we can present our company and its projects to the OTC community. We're pleased to be here. Normal business we have to get out of the way. The forward-looking statement, which we, of course, abide to, as well as a slide on the qualified person and third-party data. I am the QP for the company. Therefore, the geological information presented today is done based on that. We'll go through the board of directors of management before we attack the technical data. I am the president and chief executive officer of the company, have been for about 10 years. We've been a lithium company for about 4 years now, and are very happy to be in that field. I have an experience mostly in exploration, a little bit in the mining directly, but mostly as an exploration geologist, and have participated in several discoveries, all of which were in Quebec, actually. Mr. Victor Cantore is our executive chairman of the board. Victor has worked for 20 years in the capital markets, supporting and financing junior companies. And right now, his star pupil is Amex Exploration, of which he's the president and CEO. Nancy Lacourcière is our CFO. Nancy is an accountant with over 20 years of experience. Over 10 of those have been with public exploration companies listed on the exchange. We have 3 other directors, very well qualified and prestigious, really. Mr. Bryce is an engineer and a longtime mine builder in the Abitibi. He's built several of the largest base metal mines from the second half of the 20th century in Quebec. We have Mr. Scott Jobin-Bevans, who is a very well-known consulting geologist, PhD, who is a past president of the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada, and a very useful contact for us. And finally, Mr. Jonathan Gagne, who's an engineer and who not long ago was the managing, the country manager for Sayona Mining in Quebec and responsible for the development of the OTA Lithium project. As Tom mentioned, we're listed on the TSXV under VLI and on the OTCQB under ABEPF. As of this month, we have approximately 230 million shares issued, 64 million warrants, 7 million options, and a market cap of close to $40 million. Today, we're going to speak about, obviously, it's a Quebec thing, so we're going to speak about our Quebec projects, and of which we have 2 significant lithium projects, as well as we're going to talk about our Manitoba lithium project, and I'm going to start with that one, if you don't mind. So in Manitoba, we have the Godslith lithium project, which we acquired officially just last year, about this date last year. It's in northern Manitoba. It's part of the Flin Flon, Snow Lake, Thompson, Greenstone belt, where there's a very high occurrence of base metal and gold deposits, and nickel up in Thompson, where they had a smelter. and also within a short distance of the Snow Lake Lithium deposit at Snow Lake. So we're about 700 kilometers north of Winnipeg and about 250 kilometers east of the Thompson-Winnipeg Road. The Godslith project itself is on the shores of a very large lake. It's called Godslith Lake. And this is a slide showing the general location geographically. We've been doing some work, and so there's some stuff here, a lot of stuff here that's just projected to the future if things were to go our way. In the bottom right-hand corner is the Mantosippi Cree Nation village of God's Lake. That's a small town of about 1,000 people. About 40 kilometers away at the west end of the lake, there's a larger community, which is about 3,500 people, I'm told. These communities are all linked by a winter road system, which is operated about 3 months of the year. They also all have airstrips, and they have daily connections with Winnipeg and Thompson, Manitoba. They also have a power line that comes in off the hydroelectric projects in the north part of Manitoba, which is another couple of 100 kilometers to the north. And so the infrastructure essentially is very good for the development of a project. So the project we're looking at, the Godslith lithium deposit, is only 5 kilometers away from this village, and it's right below where the road and the power line go, and it's quite near to the lake. So from an infrastructure standpoint, it's very well located, and we're quite happy with that. The project itself is within the ancestral lands of the Mantosippi Cree, and therefore it requires us to negotiate an exploration agreement with them before we can actually go into the field and do any work. The pandemic has caused a lot of havoc in the native communities in the north of Canada, everywhere, and it's no different here. So we have not been able to access the land up to this point in order to see what they have in essence and what we need to be able to advance a project there. But we are in discussions with them and in negotiations, and we do expect to have a site visit within the next several weeks, which will allow us to get started, but also to better define the terms of an exploration agreement with the Mantosippi. And so we're looking forward to building a relationship with them on a project that might have very significant economic benefits for the tribe itself and for the native community in that area. The deposit itself, to go quickly, we believe is a very significant deposit. It was worked, funny enough, it was worked way back in the late 50s and early 60s by Inco. That's the only work that's been done on this deposit. And they drilled about 20 or 25 holes, less than 10,000 feet or 3,000 or 4,000 meters. And what they defined was, or what they discovered was this very extensive dike, pegmatite dike, over 2.5 kilometers long. They actually drilled it for over 7,600 feet continuously. And it's mineralized over at least a mile or 1.5 kilometers within that section. And as you can see on the right of the screen here, the intersections are quite significant. 14.8 meters at 1.59. That's just barely under 60 feet of 1.6% lithium, and on generally in the 10 meter plus range. So it's a very significant deposit with very little work done on it. When we put it into a longitudinal, so we're looking at it like a slice and looking at all the intersections on that one slice, we can see that almost all of the holes, except for one, were drilled above 600 feet, and most of them above 400 feet. So it's only been tested at very shallow depths, and the last hole that was drilled at the deepest level is basically the best hole drilled on the entire section. So we see this as being a wide open zone with tremendous potential for continuity at depth in particular, and even along strike. Historically, Inco had done a resource assessment, and then in 1986, a geological consultant did an internal report where he came up with a resource figure which is historical in nature. It's not worth the paper it's written on today from a regulatory basis, on a regulatory basis, but it's still a very clear indication of what was defined by the drilling back in the late 50s. And what they came up with was a historical resource of approximately 9.5 million tons at about 1.2% when you even that out, and about 11 meters wide. And this is using a 0.7% cutoff. At a higher cutoff, they get a higher grade, and the 9.4 million tons here are short tons, which is about 8.5 million tons, metric tons. This is defined down to about between 600 and 800 feet. So there's tremendous potential for expansion of this resource at depth as well as laterally under certain depths. So we're very excited about this project. The site visit that should occur within the next month or two will allow us to jumpstart this project, we hope, and get an exploration agreement with the local Mantosippi Cree Nation and be able to start work on what we believe could be a world-class deposit. I mean, it's a very, very significant resource, and we see this as having a tremendous impact on our business and on our market position as well. And now I'll move over to our Quebec projects, the lithium ones. We basically will not discuss our base metal projects in eastern Quebec and in northern New Brunswick, which are other EV battery type minerals, so nickel and copper and zinc, but we'll stick with the lithium today. So our projects are located, the Sirmac project is in northwestern Quebec, above Chibougamau, halfway between Chibougamau and the Nemaska village and lithium deposit. And to the south, we have the Cadillac project, which is just west of Val-d'Or, and we'll look at them a little closer now. The Sirmac Lithium project was the property of Nemaska Lithium, and we bought it off them back in 2018. That's what got us into the lithium business. On the property, there's one major dike. It's called the number 5 zone in the left side of the screen, and then there's an east zone that was kind of inferred or a little known, and which we have worked on and expanded quite significantly. So we here see our footprint here. We have about 80 square kilometers of ground, and with a lot of potential for discovery within that land. You can also see that even though this is in northwestern Quebec above Chibougamau, we have this major power line on the left side of the screen coming down to the south, and we have a lot of roads inside, inroads inside the property, which are all forestry roads. And so again, very good infrastructure for us to work from. This is a view of it as well. It's showing all these roads, basically accessing the property. You can drive into the zone with your car. Here you can see at the bottom of the screen the dike itself, which is very in a positive relief. Here's a good example of a large forestry camp, which is about 20 kilometers away from the property itself, and which can be used in the summertime. This is a good shot of the dike, the main dike, the number 5 dike, and as you can see, it's all been stripped off and cleaned off, and it's a very sizable pegmatite dike. It's a very impressive presence in the field. So this was drilled. And we went in after Nemaska had drilled this off back in the late 80s, the early noughts, should I say? And we did some twin holes and some infill holes within the dike itself, and came up with these significant numbers as examples. You can see here: 20 meters of 1.6%, 12 meters of 1.2, 16 meters. 22 meters of 1.7. I mean, it's a very impressive structure. Excuse me. About 5 kilometers to the east of that is that east zone that I was showing you earlier on the slide. And this is a new zone that was barely, there was a sample or two taken from it, that's it. We went in and essentially we did some stripping and trenching along the zone and found that there's several dikes. They're smaller dikes than over at the number 5, but they are there. And they gave some pretty good numbers as well, as you can see here in these channel samples. So these are channels that are cut nominally, they're cut perpendicular to the width of the zones. These dikes here are more in the 3 to 5, 6 meter width, but sometimes they go up to 14 meters wide. And the grades, of course, are also very similar and an excellent grade as the number 5 zone. So the deposit itself over on the number 5 zone was worked more extensively by Nemaska, and there's a historic resource which is in the 250-300,000 ton level, with as much of the same in tantalum below the lithium zone. So what we did is we took some samples from the outcrop and we sent them to SGS lake field, and they did some work making high quality concentrate, which is we were able to do, and then we asked them to see if they could make some lithium carbonate with the material that we had, and they came up with actually a very high purity, 99.99% pure lithium carbonate from the Sirmac ore, and with, as you can see from the numbers on the right, with very low numbers in particular for iron. And so it's an excellent ore from a metallurgical standpoint, and worthy of development. The Cadillac property, which is further down in Quebec, is right in the heartland of Quebec's mining area. As you can see on the slide here, on the east side you have Val d'Or, on the west side you have Rouyn-Noranda. There's about 100 kilometers between those 2 points. And in the middle of that, we have our Cadillac lithium property on the south side of the road. You can see on the north there, those 2 little reddish arrows, OT Lithium and Quebec Lithium. That's the lithium belt in southern Quebec, where most of the lithium occurrences and dikes are known. Where we are, just south of the Cadillac Fault and all those gold mines, is a new area, which we invested in last year. And we've staked about 200 square kilometers around this occurrence, the Cadillac lithium occurrence. And around us, 2 companies have acquired twice as much ground as we've got. And so the whole area between Noranda and Val d'Or to the south has been extensively staked for the potential for lithium, now that we've determined that this is an area where there are clearly lithium dikes of economic value. So this is another same slide, essentially. Yeah, on the north side, you can see all those colors of rocks. That's the Abitibi greenstone belt, and the Cadillac Fault is the break. To the south of that, all the gray rocks are called the Pontiac sediments, and all those other colored rocks are intrusives. And the dikes typically occur in one or the other where there's breaks in the rocks. So the little green star shows where our occurrences that we've discovered are, and we'll look at a few of those because I'm talking a bit too much here, so I guess I'll speed up a bit. So here's a good picture on the left of the pegmatite dike, and as you can see, it's just pretty linear. On the right, you can see a huge spodumene crystal that we found in the outcrops, and which historically, this is what this outcrop was known for. People saw and went there, and they found these very large crystals. What we did is when we acquired this just before the snow fell, we went in and we just did a whole bunch of short cuts with a rock saw, in areas that looked like they had spodumene, and actually they did, because the assays came back and we got some very high grade assays from all of these samples, as you can see from these pictures. But you can also see that it's pretty hard to identify the rock. I mean, it's covered with moss and stuff, and so it's not easy to ascertain exactly what we're looking at. And that's why drilling is called for. This is a plan of the entire property, and we want to look at this property. We acquired all this ground because we think there's tremendous potential for discovery of many, 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 many other dikes within it. So the green star is where we are right now, but this whole property, we had a LiDAR survey reinterpreted at high precision. And what it says is that there are over 400 potential pegmatite targets for us to look at in the field. And that's the job at hand for us next summer, is to have several teams in the field looking at all these different possible pegmatite outcrops and looking for lithium occurrences. We believe that the potential is very high for that. This is an example of the LiDAR, and it basically shows you the elevation differentials very clearly, and it takes away the vegetation. And in this case, we can see we've marked the existing or known dikes on it next to the road which goes to the north-northwest in this picture. And in this case, it's showing a lot of the drill holes that we're doing this winter on the project. The drill hole program is ongoing. We can't say much because we haven't issued a press release in the recent past about the results. We're still waiting for assay results, and we'll combine them and put them out on the market when that happens. But the program is ongoing at this stage, and and excuse me, and so for the year that's coming up, we have already $2.5 million funding in place. And our main target in the short term is this Cadillac project west of Val-d'Or, where we're going to continue drilling on the suite of main pegmatites, but where we're going to put in a big program of exploration this summer, because we think the possibility or probability of discovery of new dikes is quite high, based on the interpretation done by sophisticated PhD type geologists looking at all of the data that we have. The CIRMAC project, we will be going back on this summer. We want to do a lot of field prospecting again in the areas where we haven't been before, and try to prioritize diamond drill targets. We have a lot of dikes on that property that have never been tested, and we want to see where, if and where there is lithium mineralization within those dikes, which appear to be of the same type as the main dike and its spectacular occurrence. And finally, the Godslith project is the one we really want to get our hands on as quickly as we can. We don't know when we will get into the property, but we think that a site visit will allow us to advance and negotiate an exploration agreement quite quickly, and hopefully allow us to get a drill in there by the time the summer is going. And if we do that, then we'll go pretty hard at that project with at least one drill. If we could get 2 drills in, we're not sure. We have to see the site visit and see if we actually have the infrastructure in place for us to have that many people and equipment and demands on a small community. But we'll definitely get in there with one drill and just drill and try to drill off this huge target. I mean, 2 kilometers long, down at least 300 meters. That's quite a bit of drilling. And so we'd like to get to it as soon as we can. And with that, after a long talk, I'll stop talking and I'll go over to the questions now. So first question here, what are the short-term catalysts for VLI investors? Well, as I just said on this last slide, essentially, it's this Godslith project in particular, and then it's advancing the Cadillac project and going back on CIRMAC and trying to develop that project more. So we think we have 3 very significant lithium assets. Obviously, the Godslith, because of its historical value, is a higher value target right now, but the other 2 are quite large in terms of the area and in terms of geological potential. So we want to see if we can't develop all that. So we think there's quite a bit there for both those things to go forward. So that's where we see a lot of the value in 2022. Another question is, 2.5 million sufficient for your 2022 drill programs? Well, it's a good chunk of change. I mean, it's going to take us quite a ways, obviously, because in Quebec, around the Cadillac property, we're in what you could call the most inexpensive drilling area you could find in the country, because we're right next to all of the infrastructure. We're just 10 miles south of Cadillac, which is a famous mining town. I mean, we're only 15 kilometers south of the Larone mine, Agnico Eagle's major mine. And, we're just to the west of Malartic and the huge mine there. So we have access to the least expensive or the most inexpensive infrastructure cost that you could find anywhere. So we can get quite a few meters out of $2.5 million. There's no doubt about that. Another question is, what is our timeline for wells drill results? Well, I think everybody probably says the same thing we do. Well, there's a lot of backlog when it comes to assays, so we want to have enough holes in the program and enough results back to make it significant. So we're hopefully, pretty soon. I mean, I guess that's the answer. Pretty soon. That would be it. Oh, here's another one. What are the short? No, that's it. Okay, so basically those are the questions that I had, And I'd like to thank everyone for listening to our talk. Much appreciated, and we'll see you another time. Thank you very much.